Welcome, Facebook fans. So glad you tuned in. This is today's class. We've loaded the garden center up. I wish to go right ahead, pull a seat up. We have loaded the garden center up with a whole bunch of flowers. Some of them are exciting, new, you've never seen before. I've never seen before. I'm trying to live stream this more and more, but I thought I'd show some of those off. And these are plants, you can put these in the ground now and you're just fine. So you've got spring plants. Now through Mother's Day is considered spring, and then after Mother's Day we start to shift over into those spring to summer kind of plants. So I've got just went to the garden center and picked kind of my favorites. Maybe I got 20 different things up here. I focus mainly on the plants, and I'll show you what I do to kind of get them to bloom better. I'm kind of a flower grower. That's kind of my gig. That's what I do. It's therapeutic for me. After this, we've got 3 more classes through the month of April. And so we will be holding those. We're open. The mayor has defined Waters Garden Center as an essential business because of all of the vegetables, fruit trees, berries, because of all the edible stuff that we sell to backyard gardeners. So thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. We'll try to do you proud. With that, I've got a few vegetables for you just because they came in so nice. Plus I got an idea of how I use vegetables in my flower beds, flower gardens. So I'll share some of that with you. So that's kind of the gist. We'll do all that in about 50 minutes. And then we'll take questions. If you're watching in, we are going to answer the questions on Facebook for you. If you want to tune in and type something out, we'll try to get that to you. So why don't we just jump right in. I'll show you my favorite flower. I always start with this one. This is my personal favorite. I know it's white, looks kind of boring, but alyssums and lobelias. This is called Snowball or Snow Princess lobelia. I'll plant this at the front edge of my container gardens, my raised beds, my pots. This will literally turn into this long trailing, it'll literally go down to the ground 2-3 feet. It's crazy, and it blooms from now through. I literally have flowers on this starting into December. Is that crazy? So it's called Snow Princess or Snowball. It looks like a giant snowball. You literally won't see your beautiful glazed cobalt containers, that oxblood red. It'll just be white like this. It's amazing. In fact, the grandkids came over for Halloween. We harvested the pumpkins, and we're playing hide and seek with the pumpkins. I go hide a pumpkin in the yard, they try to find it. This was so bushy, I hid a pumpkin this big underneath this, and they couldn't find it. They just didn't know to look underneath the flowers. So that's how big this thing will be. I often plant it with something like kale, because this is ornamental kale. I also have edible kales, but this will turn into a great big ornamental thing. It has a white flower or yellow flower, about that tall. We'll plant these at the front edge of like hotels and things, commercial setting. So as it bolts and comes up, it fills up the entire entrance to the lobby with this beautiful kale flowery smell to it. Even the lobelia smells good, but doesn't that look good together to put in companion plants together? These are both annual flowers. They live for the year and then die in the winter, basically. This is a crop of sizzle pansies. Now, we also sell giant pansies, but you don't often see this ruffled kind of flower to it. It does have a light smell like pansies do, but this will bloom now through, non-stop. This will double in size, triple in size, like right away. And then it will usually die out sometime in the middle of the heat of summer. It doesn't like to be above 90 degrees. No matter how much water you give it, it just goes, I'm so thirsty, and then just collapses. But that's when you put your zinnias, that's when you put your geraniums, petunias, all that summer-loving stuff. These guys will give up in summer. But sizzle pansies, you just have never seen that particular pansy before because it's only here at Waters Garden Center. And you can buy them right now. There we go. Okay, so a new color. of poppy. This is Gerber daisy, Gerber daisy. They come in a lot of different bright colors. This is part of the Revolution mix, Revolution pink. So we sell lots of different pinks, bubblegums, that kind of stuff, but that's just a new color. Those of you that like Gerber daisies, animals don't eat it. I've had javelina go through my gardens. They don't bother this. Deer seem to leave it alone. It's pretty bulletproof. And it just does this over, you'll see waves and waves and waves of these flowers coming up all spring long. Just a great plant. When your gardens are looking kind of sad, ugly, and barren, these are some that'll make them look better. Okay, 2 perennials. I've got, well, this is an annual, this is a perennial. This is a nasturtium, and it just does this non-stop. And you'll see underneath there, you've got probably another 8 or 10 flowers right there ready to go. So as soon as this fades, this will self-prune, and it'll keep sending out these long trails of flowers coming up. But again, smells good. I like it. So this one is a perennial. This is wild lupin. We sell this in wildflower mixes quite often. This is a tough little plant. It comes back year after year after year after year. And you can see this flower starting to come up. That's going to elongate about like this. This is more for the shaded parts of the gardens, more than sun. The flower will last far longer in the shaded areas, but it has these long spikes that'll hover about that far above the plant. You just haven't seen this purple foliage. Usually it's green, and then the flower colors are a little bit different. It's kind of like that purple flower. So very unusual for a lupin to be that colorful. 2 that maybe, okay, I do this one, and this one that you've never seen blue for. Let me see if I can put the card up here where we kind of show these off together. This is a perennial geranium. So geraniums, we sell lots of geraniums, scented geraniums, the Washington geraniums, trailing geraniums, vining, ivy geraniums. This is a perennial, so the flower is not quite as large. The foliage, though, is equally as scented, has this light citrusy smell to it, has this blue flower to it. This is one you can plant in the yard and it will come back year after year after year after year. Takes full sun to shade. It's just tough. It's a great little plant for perennial wild gardens. Animals don't eat this. Deer, rabbits, they don't like geraniums. So, and they also don't like this one. You know what that is? Society garlic. So we've got variegated varieties and we have green varieties. How often, an idea that I use with my garlics, this is made to be pretty, not to harvest. I'll put this in my containers to hide the scent of other types of plants that maybe the javelina want to come eat, that the rabbits want to come and eat. So I'll use this as a decoy and they'll go, oh, everything here smells like garlic. I don't like garlic. So it has this bubble effect that keeps them away from, because the garlic. The only negative, it smells like garlic. So I'm not allowed to put this by the front door because the whole house will start to smell of garlic. So just kind of put by the front door, the garage areas, out in the raised beds, super, super perennial, comes back year after year. Take a look at that. Can you get that? You never see this kind of porcelain blue color. This is Hiller's porcelain blue firmwort, fumewort, something like that. Fumewort. Super, super unusual perennial. A shade lover, but always you'll see this purple, violet. You never see blue, not true blue in flowers. It's a very unusual color for flowers. But that's just a pretty little, this would actually go well. Look at this. In a shade garden, put these 2 guys together, that in front of the other, and all of a sudden you've got yourself with a hosta behind it. And maybe a rhododendron behind that. All of a sudden you've got a beautiful shade garden that just looks so good on the north side of your house. This, you want to know what that is? California poppies, you got it. So usually they're orange. You'll see, in fact, they're blooming all around town. Starting to see this orange flower. That's this guy, but you don't see red like that. So we'll have reds, orange, whites, kind of apple blossom color. We got several crops of these coming up, but California poppies, they don't transplant out in the wild very easily. They put on a real taproot, so by the time you try to dig that up and transplant it, it dies, almost to the poppy. You either seed these in the yard or you put them in the ground fully rooted like that. California poppies. Let's talk about two of these. This is called bleeding heart because the flower, I don't know if you can see that, it looks like a heart. The stamen comes out and it looks like it's bleeding. So they come in reds and pinks. Normally you always see this in red. This has more of a heart-shaped thing, but to see pink like that is kind of just different. Very tough. I've had personal experience with this in my shade gardens, and the animals have left it alone. So rabbits and my nemesis are rabbits and javelina. They seem to leave this guy alone in my shade gardens. Another one, this is columbine, songbird columbine. It's one of our companion plants that we put together for the month of April. It always starts to bloom. Is it your birthday today?
It is.
Happy birthday. Yeah, I saw you on Facebook.
How did you remember that?
I just kind of, I don't know. I'm happy to see you. I'm glad you're here on your birthday.
I'm here to buy my birthday present.
You're buying your own present. I would request a gift card and then come later when you're at your convenience. This is a columbine. Now there's a wild columbine that grows that's yellow. It just grows throughout the mountains of Arizona, the White Mountains, all the way to Flagstaff, the ridge lines up here. Yellow's good, but too much yellow is just kind of, this is prettier. Also our native one is just solid yellow. This is called songbird. We'll have several of these different two-toned flowers coming up. Again, more of a shade kind of flower. I noticed that it does take full sun. I've grown it in full sun. Just the flowers fade a little faster than I want. It blooms longer and it's got some morning sun, then midday shade. It does better. This is rose and pink songbird columbine. These are two of my favorite perennials. I always grew this one in my yard. This is called catmint. It naturalizes really, just nothing eats it. Super drought hardy. It spreads, it recedes. It's a pollinator. Butterflies and bees love this. But it starts to bloom now in your yard, and it will continue to bloom. It kind of pulsates 2 or 3 times through the yard. This will turn into a mound about, I think it's about, 18 knee high, a little lower than knee high. Kind of this real pretty, neat, clean mound. When it's done blooming, I'll go ahead and cut these off, fertilize it again with the all-purpose plant food. It comes right back into bloom. It's just a great plant. If you've got heavy animal populations, this is a go-to. When you rub the foliage, it has this heavy scent, herbal scent to it, which is animals, they don't like herbs. They don't like them at all. So catmint or nepa, what's the botanical? Nepa something or other. Nepeta. I just couldn't quite get it. The Latin and the common names kind of get crossed sometimes. Anyone know what that is? Daisy May, Shasta daisies. So these are short. This is a dwarf variety. Usually daisies get up pretty tall, taller than knee high. This is a dwarf variety that stays down to a foot or so. So it's much cleaner, neater. But daisies do this. And again, the animals don't bother daisies. They don't like them. So this is a good one if you need just bulletproof, easy to grow. Perennial comes back year after year. Daisies are a great way to go. All right. These two guys are related, or gals. Anytime you see the words pinks or carnations or dianthus, they're all related. They're all kind of cousins of each other. This is probably the rock star. This is a dianthus. This is called cherry pie. Comes in pink, white, and I think this red. I like this particular model because it's got the blue foliage. So there's lots of green you'll see with perennials. Have blue. It's kind of unusual. It stays this color year round. In winter, it's blue. Just this beautiful green mound like this. It started to bloom late January. It's now in full bloom in my own yards, and it will continue to bloom, continue to pulsate waves of flowers. Just a great plant. And anytime you see blue foliage, almost every time, it means animals don't like it. So they don't like that blue. It's a secretion that plants are brilliant. It throws off this secretion over the whole plant that makes it taste bad to animals. So they don't like it. I do tend to deadhead it when you get some blooming. Go ahead and prune that off, or prune it back, or nip it off. It will instantly start setting up new flowers for you. This one is the same way, only green, has a smaller flower. You see they have very similar type of flowers. This is just miniature size. So this is kind of half the size, only gets about that tall. Kind of mound again, just like this. And it just pushes these literally hundreds and hundreds of flowers off of it. Great little plant for higher elevation gardens out in the mountains of Arizona. This one is starting to bloom all around town. People are starting to bring in pictures on their phone going, what is this? This is creeping phlox. This is as tall as it gets. And then you can see it starting to put runners down this way. We put these into rock gardens. It'll actually crawl in between the rocks or over the rock beds in between the borders. And it just has a super long bloom cycle. You can count on it. It announces the first warm day of spring every year. We have probably 2 or 3 varieties of colors of this. Normally you'll see this come in whites, pinks. To see it in blue, super unusual, or whatever color that is, violet, whatever that color is, this is an unusual color to it. Pink is kind of what your grandparents always grew. I think I've got a white one with a pink stripe in it down there. So just a great little plant. Loves heat. I mean, kick dirt at it, curse at it. It'll just bloom more. It just does really great for you. So creeping phlox. I have quite a bit of this in my yard, and I like it because it reseeds so easily. A great wildflower. It just spreads. This is as tall as it gets, maybe a little bit taller. It's starting to set flowers right now in my own gardens. And I planted 3 of these underneath up my big flower bed, kind of a triangular shape. It's now one solid mat of just beautiful sage or meadow sage. Meadow sage, anytime you hear the word sage or salvia, you know you got a great plants from the mountains of Arizona. Animals don't like them. So anything herbally, sagey smell, they don't bother. I like this one because butterflies, I think they've died and gone to heaven, so painted ladies are on them. Also bees. This is one that blooms very early, so bees come out. They've been hibernating for months. They're finally out foraging, and there's not much for them to go forage for. This is one that blooms early for them. Hummingbirds seem to like them. So anytime you see blue and yellow flowers, those are generally pollinating kind of flowers. Butterflies, hummingbirds, bees are going to like those. So meadow sage. There's also a neat one down there. It's pink. This is normal for sage. To have a pink variety, super unusual. So it comes in a couple different colors. Oh, what's that?
It's a perennial.
It's a perennial, yeah. Perennial. I'm kind of going focused on I think all I have left are perennials at this point. Then I'm going to go to more some of the herbal stuff that you haven't seen before. Some techniques that I use to kind of make things bloom. This is Gara, and this does not do it justice. This is called dark rose, Steffi dark rose Gara, G-A-U-R-A, Gara. It's a native, grows wild. I plant this out by my mailbox where it's rough, mailbox, radiant heat, it's got asphalt, dogs and people are going by. It's rough on plants out there. This one just thrives, and I hardly take care of it. And so this will have a flower, a pink flower. It hovers, almost floats above the foliage. You see, these are all the flower heads. In another week or 2, this will be solid pink, and it just blows in the wind above the foliage. So long stem with a flower, and hummingbirds cannot resist Gara. They just love it. So drought hardy, tough. Animals don't bother them. Javelina, deer, rabbits, they don't bother this. And then it's just aggressive grower. It'll bloom from middle of April through fall. It's an amazing long bloom cycle for Gara. We've got it in white, several pinks, kind of a dark pink, light pink. Comes in several colors. That's just a new variety. I wish I could show off the new variety in bloom for you all, but this is as good as you get for today. Here we go. So this is, again, blue-eyed grass or dark-eyed grass. It's a grass that blooms. You don't find that very often. You always see plumes, short, like dwarf buddy grass or something. But to see this grassy feel to it, it almost has an iris kind of look. You plant it with iris, it'd be a companion plant. But long bloom cycle, perennial, and because it's got such a fleshy root zone, it's very, very drought hardy. So if you kill this, it'll be planting it in heavy clay, and it just rots, overwatering issues. So, okay. Now for some funky, let's see, how am I gonna sort this out? I'll put this over here, as they go together. I'll cover these three, just because they go together. So companion, we're big into companion plants here. Things that you group together and they like the same sun, wind kind of patterns. I brought this for you, it's called In the Mood rose. It's the first crop of roses that came in bloom. I love them. From this point forward, we'll have literally thousands. We're famous for our roses. Thousands of roses coming in. Kind of an insider scoop if you like roses. The last week of April, I'll have 1,000 roses show up. They will all be in bloom, even better than this. Every variety you could think of, grandifloras, hybrid teas, floribundas, climbers, they'll all be in bloom. And you'll know they're here at the garden center because the entire front parking lot will be nothing but roses. So that's the only place we have room for them, not many of them. And they'll all be like this. We gotta wait until we're done with potential frost, because the last thing I wanna do is bring them in, and the frost won't bother these, but it'll take the flower. And I don't wanna bring in 1,000 roses and then none of them are in bloom, that would be bad. But In the Mood, great red, very fragrant. This here, let's show you this. This is Salvia gregii, or autumn sage. Again, anytime you hear sage or salvia, you know you got a winner. This is a woody perennial. Gets up to about, I don't know, knee high or so, something like that. And it just blooms like this for an extremely long time. From April through November, it's got blooms. And again, hummingbirds just love sages. And again, sages have, when you rub your foliage, your hand on the foliage, has a sagey scent to it, which means animals don't like it. So I'm trying to curate this for you so you got plants that kind of bulletproof, no matter where you're tuned in from, they're gonna grow for you. It loves full sun. More sun, more flowers. Hotter, better, just bake it. Take a blow dryer to it when you're done. It's gonna like that even more. This is a crop we grew because it's so hard to find. This is an ibis or candy tuft. It's hard to find candy tuft. And so this particular variety does this crazy long bloom cycle, and again, bright sun. So it likes intense heat. So this is well maintained. It self-prunes itself. When it's done blooming, it kind of throws off that flower and sets another, you'll see down in there, another flower bud coming up. So just lots, pulsating waves of white flowers. And again, animals seem to leave it alone. So combine this with, there you go. You got yourself a garden just like that. So Garas and candy tuft. Okay, let's move to Southwestern kind of mix. I've got a couple. Do I have enough room on the... That one's one that's unusual. This is Lenten Rose, or hellebores. Hellebores, which you in all the fine garden magazines, but Lenten Rose is what your grandparents, has a little more civil name to it. But Lenten Rose is an evergreen perennial, and it's one of the first things to bloom. This has been in bloom for a month, so around gardens. So it starts very early on, even when there's a little bit of snow in the air, this one starts to bloom. Even before peonies, before your dahlias, this one starts to bloom. Super unusual. You'll only find this very early in spring at the garden center when the crop's done. You just won't find it again until the following spring. It just has this thick, leathery leaf to it, which makes it very robust. It'll take just about any part of the gardens, but Lenten rose, there you go. This one, let's just start putting things over here. Anyone know what this is?
Yeah, I had a bunch of them in San Diego.
Gopher plant, or gopher spurge.
Oh, no, there's another plant that looks like that. Sorry.
Yeah, this looks like a prehistoric plant. It screams Southwestern. I love Arizona. It's starting to bloom all around town, so it'll be covered in yellow flowers. This is about as tall as it gets. Maybe it'll get up to about here, then it starts to spill out. It starts to flow over. So we use these in rock gardens, bright sun, hot locations, rock gardens. That's where this is going to shine, and it's evergreen. So it's actually a euphorbia. Euphorbia, it's related to poinsettias of all things. So, yeah, there you go. So when you break off the stem, you'll get this white sap to it. So here you don't have to cut them back. They just kind of stay green and they just keep looking good. So this goes really well with some of your other Southwestern kind of plants. I brought this one up. We found this over near Albuquerque. This is an agave or century plant. This is the one that puts on that really huge flower, goes 10, 12 feet tall. This is the plant. They call it a century plant because it supposedly blooms once every 100 years, century. What I find is it blooms about 10 years in, it'll start to bloom like that. So it's much shorter, especially in a garden setting where you can feed it and kind of nurture it, make it happier. Out in the wild, maybe it's once every 100 years, or who knows. Usually you'll see these be much more uniform, artichoke, agaves, that kind of stuff. To see this one more wild looking is just unusual. It actually looks more like the Utah gensis, the one that grows up on the Grand Canyon, up on the rim. Super hardy. It's going to take the cold. It goes down to minus 40 degrees or some crazy cold. It takes any amount of cold that we have, whereas not all agaves will do that. We have some of them, they're more desert varieties. They'll freeze at the higher elevations. This one will not. And it companion plants with your gopher plant, red yuccas, prickly pears, choyas. Which is a great little companion plant. Plant it, I would say plant this, maybe water it to get it started for a year, and I would bend back that irrigation. I wouldn't water it again. I would just leave it alone. So, okay. Here we go. A couple others here. This is one of the only evergreen roses. In Arizona, it's only called this in Arizona, it's called the tombstone rose, because in downtown Tombstone, they've got one that's over 100 years old. It's got a trunk on it, like this big around. It's amazing. They grow it up and they got it over this huge trellis work. I've literally grown it in Skull Valley where I parked my pickup truck underneath it and it shaded my truck. It can get big. It's a climber. It gets aggressive. So don't put this right next to your patio or it will take over unless you want it shaded. But it has no thorns and it's evergreen. So you can rub your hand against it. So it has this kind of flower to it. Every spring comes in white and this yellow. There's only two colors. But it's Lady Banks rose is what everyone else in the country calls it. We call it tombstone rose. Okay.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I planted one of those last year.
Yeah.
It's coming back, but it doesn't bloom very well.
Okay. So she's got a question. Tuned in. She's over listening that it didn't bloom very well for her. Food. That's a really fast grower. And so I would use that all-purpose food, the 744 food, and we'll get into that here towards the end of this. A lot of these things that bloom aggressively, it takes a lot of food to create that, to create the sugars or that kind of stuff. So more food. Use the 744. I would say every other month. We say use it 3 times a year, but maybe with that rose, maybe 4. It will definitely get you more flowers. This one, I wish I had it in bloom. Lilacs. They're going to be in bloom in a couple weeks. They always start to flush their new foliage first, then they set their buds. Mine at home is standing overhead high. It looks like this, and it's starting. You can see the flower buds starting to come up. So I've got a white one that I use to shade my office. I've got this northwest corner where my office is, and it just bakes. It's just hot. I'm trying to do some writing or look at spreadsheets or whatever. I wanted more shade. So I planted a lilac. It gets up about 6, 7, 8 feet tall and equally wide, beautiful vase shape. And again, drought hardy. This is actually xeriscape, so it looks delicate, but because the root structure is so deep, it naturalizes very, very easily. Again, another one that needs more food to really get the blossoms. It's a heavy feeder, so if you feed it more regularly with a 744, you get a better, more robust type of lilac. So there's probably down there over a dozen varieties of lilacs, from dwarf varieties to the standard variety. This one actually has a dark called Ludwig lilac. It's got like a French lilac, very dark, rich purple to it. So there's reds, whites, yellows. There's dwarf varieties, repeat bloomers. This is good lilac country. Okay. Let's go to this one that goes companion plants with that. Again, this is part of our Southwest mix. Anytime you see the word broom, B-R-O-O-M, brooms, Spanish broom is a great big one. Can get a little weedy. I don't care for Spanish broom myself because it's just too aggressive. It takes too much time to keep it under control. This one's called all gold broom, all gold. It starts its season out like this. It's just starting to open. In another week, it'll be in full bloom. And where this is, there's a group of them. You'll smell nothing but broom smell. This real sweet, fragrant. It has a lilac-y kind of smell. It's very, very fragrant. Drought hardy. After it's done blooming, they're put on little tiny leaves. Not noticeable, really. You're really planting it for this evergreen, like pencil plant kind of structure. This one only gets up to be about hip high, so way easier to maintain. Doesn't sprawl as much. Doesn't seed up and come in other places like the Spanish broom does. And go together. Let me give you an idea of what I do with some of my edibles. I'll give you a couple of these. So Lisa and I, we have over 50 pots. Lots of raised beds. We live up above Prescott Lakes, that area, up above the high school on a north slope. It is the roughest gardening I've ever done. Heavy clay. The soil does not perk, and it hardly sees sun. So when snow sets on there, it just stays there for a while. So things tend to rot. What I do, we basically have created a whole bunch of raised beds. Going down, it's a classic north, 2-story house. You cut into the hillside. The vistas are wonderful, but you got this 2-story thing. Well, the property, we just put raised beds. It's kind of like on the downhill side, we put retaining block and backfill with good soil so I could grow my flowers. The patios, we have extensive patios. We love to entertain. We love guests over. We love friends, or we used to. Now we just have family over. But anyway, what we do with containers is we'll soften up all the patios. And what I think of when I'm designing, I want some annual color. I want things like these. So all my pots have some annuals because nothing blooms like an annual. It just does this for its entire lifespan and then flames out in a flame of glory, and then it's dead. That's an annual for you. Perennial and permanent both start with P, so those come back year after year after year. I want to put some perennials in there like candy tuft. I use this quite a bit in my containers. Dianthus or pinks or carnations. These are my foundations. They fill up my pots or that part of the bed and give me consistency, so it's always got something I count on every year coming back. And I accessorize with all the annuals. In between those, I'm a think outside the box kind of guy. And so I love using edibles in my flower beds. I use this one quite a bit, beets. Beets, it does actually form a beet, but the foliage is just beautiful. You can use this as a contrast. Doesn't bloom really, but the foliage, I'm using it for the foliage. And I'll harvest this, and Lisa and I, we love juicing juice in the morning, so we'll have fresh juice. Go out and pick Swiss chard, beets. I love lettuces. So all kinds of nifty lettuces you can't get from the grocery store, especially the deeper red, speckled, spotted. You can't find those. They're just too quirky. You have to grow them in your own gardens, and they're much healthier for you. Your darker colors have antioxidants that are better for cancer immunity, that kind of stuff. I also use quite a bit of herbs in my garden. So thyme, oregano, there's beautiful oreganos. This is curry. Isn't that pretty? It smells like curry, gets up like this, has a yellow flower. It's just pretty. And I can use that in my garden as I want, but I'll have flowers intermixed with them. So I think we can think outside the box as we come into the planting season. You can have some edible plants with your flowers intermixed, and they're companions with each other. I brought this one. This is a strawberry, Tuscany strawberry. You're buying this really for the red flower. Strawberries almost always have a white or pink flower. To have this bright, whatever color that is, you can tell. This one you're planting for the flower. It actually trails and sends runners like all strawberries do. And it does from a fruit, but it's rather small. It's very sweet, but it's rather small. If you actually want strawberries, I've got actual strawberries that you can plant out there too. But I use strawberries quite often. I don't like vinca. It's too aggressive, like vinca, like periwinkle. It's an evergreen, perennial. It grows like crazy, but it takes over. It chokes out everything. This is much kinder, and I think prettier foliage than some of the other ground covery, running kind of plants. Okay, let me get these out of the way. Just wanted to show you just how I use in my own gardens some of the edibles intermixed with my flowers. This is orange mint. Can you smell it? I wish I could pass it around, but I'm not allowed to do that anymore. I don't think. I'm not sure. I don't know what to do anymore. Anyway, mints. We've got all kinds of spearmint and peppermint, what you know. But there's chocolate mint. There's peppermint. And there's chocolate mint. There's pineapple mint. There's apple mint. All kinds of mints. The main thing with mint, every yard should have some mint. Don't put it in the middle of your garden, or it will take over. You'll have nothing but mint. I use mint quite a bit in containers because I can control it. It's right there. I'm not allowed to, I don't let it escape. I use it underneath my hose bib. I'll use spearmint because I love spearmint and teas. Summer's coming up, and just spearmint's got this very sweet, minty taste to it. So we'll pick that quite a bit, but I never water it or care for it. It only gets whatever comes out of the hose bib, and that's it. So that seems to keep it under control. I use chocolate mint next to my driveway where all the water kind of comes down and settles right there. I never use that mint, but it's so aggressive, it takes all the oil and brake dust and all the gunk that comes off your car coming down the driveway, and I filter it this way so it's not, all that stuff isn't going downhill into Watson and Willow Lake. And so I'm using mint that way. When it gets out of control, I never care for it. It gets out of control, I take the car and I just I run over it a few times and I go, get back, yeah! And I go, okay, we're set for a while. I hardly ever care for it. Once a year I'll mow it or something, that's it. That's how you can use some of these herb things. And all herbs, if you're out where antelope, javelina, deer, jackrabbits they don't like herbs. I know we do, but they just don't like that. In fact, many of our repellents we have to keep deer off of these kinds of plants, they're made from herbal oils. So they just don't like that. A couple new, I thought I'd give you a quick lesson if I could. Let me clear off a couple things. Just while we're here, we don't have time. We got time, good. I'll give you a lesson on lavender. I love lavender. Let me get these out of the way. We are in great lavender country. But when you come to the garden center, I probably have 6, 7, 8 varieties of lavender. It comes down to three things. I'm going to share them with you. So I brought three examples, and then one just to inspire. I'll show that one. I'll inspire at the end. There's basically three types of lavender. They all have similar foliage. There's English lavender. It has more of the, you'll have to see the flowers kind of elongate out. This is the toughest of all the lavenders. This is the one they make potpourris, they use in the kitchen. It's the most common, most used lavender, English lavender. You can't kill this. This will go sub-zero. I think it goes to minus 20 or 30 degrees, some crazy cold. It is the most robust, cold hardy mountain lavender, but it's not as pretty. Then they have what's called French lavender. This is almost as hardy. They use it quite a bit for potpourris. The oils in it are very, very sweet. Has a good flavor to it. Again, the flowers are a little more upright, but they aren't as showy as a Spanish lavender. So you got English, French, and Spanish. This one I brought, Spanish always has this very tight flower head to it. You've never seen that color. This is called Ghostly Princess, Spanish lavender. New color. You don't see white and pinks. You just don't see that because almost always Spanish lavender looks like this. This is the most famous. This is the one they put on the front of magazines. This is the one that you don't really use it as much as the foliage isn't as fragrant, but the flowers are stunning. All lavenders are evergreen. They look like this year round. I've literally taken this and grown it in a great big pot, probably 20, 24 inches wide. It was tall, it was big. I needed something showy to really show off inside this pot. I grew it and this thing literally grew for years and years. It got up to about 2 feet tall, perfectly mounded, just perfect shape. It just looks really formal. And then bees love it, butterflies like it, it's a pollinator. And so it's just a great low water, low care kind of plant. To make this really bloom like this though, you're gonna need to water it with some nutrients in it. What I do, here's an insider tip for blooms. About twice a month, something like that, every other week or so, I'll mix up some flower power in my watering cans and I'll just kind of top off, I'll water my flowers with this and it keeps them pulsating with color. You get brighter colors, more flowers. If you've just cut back some catmint or something, you go through and water it with this afterwards, it'll come right back into bloom. This is something I put together 7-8 years ago for flowers that just stopped blooming. So we're famous for lilacs who just stopped blooming. Our hanging baskets, we'll buy them for Mother's Day, and 2, 3, 4 weeks later they stop blooming. That's because of nutrients. This was made to keep flowers and fruits really blooming, keep them blooming. It's got a scoop in it, it's a scoop per gallon of water, it's that kind of stuff. And I'll end with one of these for flowers, and I'll show you some of the, I don't even know if you can get that on the camera, it's so big. This is digitalis, or foxglove. Great perennial. It actually does surprisingly well here. It does this every spring for a very long time. So this will keep elongating, and as it grows, it keeps throwing more and more flowers on it. It is a shade lover. It's not going to like the more sunny areas, and because it's so tall, it's in a wind area. Let's say by your front door, the wind kind of funnels through. You might have to stake it. It's so tall, so beautiful, but in a protected cove or under a patio. It loves growing there. So foxglove is the common name. It's hard to even. And then, just to tease you, just because the vegetable gardens are starting to go in. Oh, I don't have enough room. Too many plants for this cart. Is that a spectacular pepper? Oh my gosh. We're trying to get better at bringing in established plants. We originally plugged these late winter, early, like at the new year, thinking, oh, our customers travel quite a bit. They go on cruise ships and airplanes. When they come home, they didn't have time to plant. We'll just have established things so that when they get home, they go, oh, I now have a pepper plant. I just caught up by 2 months. We've got quite a few different types of peppers. Some ideas for peppers. The one that everyone comments on in my own gardens, I've got a very large square red pot. It's literally this big and it's this tall. It's very tall, it's beautiful. It looks like a piece of art. What I do every year, I plug 4 pepper plants in each corner, a pepper in each corner, and then I put lobelia, or that white flowered thing. Do I still have that out here? We've got too many plants. I've done several things for that. Oh, here. I put these in between the peppers, and so this tends to overflow the red pot, and then I'll have jalapenos, serranos, whatever pepper you like. It doesn't matter. All peppers sort of look the same, glossy green leaf, but the fruit will vary. So they all seem to grow at the same rate. They all seem to get similar in height. They're all really similar, but the Scoville units, how hot they are, they can go from sweet to mild to flavorful to inedible. I mean, just like they're so hot, you look at them, your face starts to light up on fire. That's just an idea how to use peppers, but they're available. I also have smaller sizes. Then, same thing. The only thing that make this better is if instead of flowers, it had fruit, which will be next week. We were growing a whole series of tomatoes that you can put in the ground now. They're pre-caged. You wouldn't even have to take this out of the pot. It's made to actually grow right into this for the year. But lots of tomatoes. Some insider tips on tomatoes, because we've got a lot of them. There's a rush. The Victory Garden is back. We can hardly keep all the edibles in stock. We can't keep seed in stock. In the Prescott area, this higher elevations, it's too early to put these into the gardens. It's too cold. So these are a tropical plant. They don't like to go below 50 degrees. If you're cold outside at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's cold. Now we do have some of these for those folks that have greenhouses, Arizona rooms, or you can do what I do. I'll plant this in the garden. We have what's called plant protectors. These are mini greenhouses you can put over this that heats the soil, keeps the plant warm. And so now I can have a tomato plant that will bloom fruit 2 months earlier than anyone else out there. That's what these are for. If you're going to plant tomatoes, peppers, all the things that form a fruit, we've got eggplants in. If you're going to plant those, make sure you protect them somehow, cover or have a mini greenhouse, or it's just a bit too early. It's be the end of this month. The 1st of May is when you really start putting out that kind of plant. Does that make sense? So I don't want newbies to make a mistake. And we'll go over that next week, because next week's class is on gardening for newcomers. Zones, seasons, watering, dealing with pH, the sun is more intense, just all those variables that can make it hard. We're going to cover that so that you can up your game like right now. So this season you can have more successes. Gardening is not 100%. These are living, breathing things. It's like planting puppy dogs out in the yard. Some of them are going to really do well. Some of them are going to struggle. And so you as the gardeners to nurture and care and get them to live. That's the gratification of gardening. When you have a success, it's like an oasis, especially in Arizona. In Arizona, we tend to have more desert landscape, rock, lots and lots of rocks. It looks more sterile, which exposes plants to more sun and wind. So when you put a few plants out there and it starts to shine, it starts to go into color, you notice it more. So you walk down your neighborhood going, whoa, look at that, that's pretty neat. That's because of the lack of green that we have. The little bit that we do have that shines more than, let's say, the Midwest, where everyone's dandelions look beautiful. Why one more thing out there? It just doesn't have the same impact. So with that, I think I've covered most of the things I wanted to go into. I would say food, and then we'll maybe touch on bugs a little bit, but then we can go for questions. Seem okay? So give me like 2 minutes. What I do for my flowers I'll go out about every 6 to 8 weeks and I sprinkle all-purpose plant food, the 744 food we make here. I'll sprinkle that around the bases. That's my meat and potato, my longevity, that's what keeps them just consistently fed. It gets me more foliage and more flowers. In addition to that, I tend to water every other week, about twice a month, with the flower power. This stuff. So I've got 2 watering cans, 2-gallon watering cans, and I just mix them up and I go water everything. Another little secret too, about 2 weeks before we have a major party, let's say Mother's Day is coming up. Hopefully we're out of all this and we can have backyard barbecues. And you got the 4th of July, Father's Day, and we just have the whole entertainment thing going on. I'm hoping we get some outdoor time because I like sharing my gardens with family and friends. 2 weeks before I have an event, I'll go deadhead and clean up my flowers. I water it in with flower power, and within 2 weeks, you can almost count on it. Things are in full bloom, budding up. They just look vibrant, happy, glorious. That's kind of what I do. That's how I get things to really have more color in my gardens. Lastly, as you're planting, get a bottle of this. This is for transplant shock. This is root and grow. This is an organic steeped tea. We just take a whole bunch of stuff, we heat it up, and we brew out the nutrients of the plants. It's just got a thick chocolatey, like molasses look to it. 3 tablespoons in a gallon of water. But before I plant any of this stuff, I make sure that I have 2 gallons of that waiting to go in. So I'll plant, I'll water everything in. When I'm all done, I'll give it some root and grow. I'll follow up in about 2 weeks with another dose of this. And I'll keep doing that every 2 weeks until I see the plants stabilize. They're out of transplant shock. So they're setting more flowers, they're not wilty, they're not yellowing, they're starting to push new foliage. Oh, that one's happy, oh good. Then I stop this piece of it. This is made to help establish more roots, to get it used to its new home in your gardens, specifically made for that. Insects. A lot of these don't have a lot of insects. If you do, it's really going to be aphids maybe. Thrip will show up here shortly, probably in about 2-3 weeks. They're also called no-see-ums. Sometimes they can bite your skin, leave a little welt. Those are the things that get into the flowers, and all of a sudden they were blooming really nice, had a long bloom cycle, and all of a sudden they bloom and they're done in a day. What's wrong? What's happening? If you look inside the flower, it's a thrip. T-H-R-I-P, no-see-um. If you see that, any kind of, whether it's edible, a flower, or whatever, I always start with triple actions, organic kind of bug killer. It also works on mites. It also works on mildew. It's kind of my catch-all. It's also safe for me. It's safe for my pets, safe for birds, safe for the pollinators. It's just safer than a harsh malathion, nuclear waste in a bottle. Stinks to high heaven. I don't like using those. So I tend to go with organics whenever possible. And that's probably going to do 99% of all of your flowers. One caveat, I do have a nemesis in the gardens. It's called budworm. They seem to like my petunias and my geraniums. It's a little tiny caterpillar, cute little thing, green, and it only likes to eat flowers. Nothing but flowers. And so they'll show up usually late spring through summers, kind of their time frame. When you start seeing holes inside a part of your flowers missing, that's budworm. Only one thing will cause that. You won't see the worm, or it's very difficult to find. If you see that, come talk to us right away. We've got an organic caterpillar killer called BT. B as in boy, T as in Tom. BT tends to work really well in that particular pest. It just depends on the flowers you've got. Just something to put on your radar and watch. If you see it, great. Some years are really bad. Some years, I never see them. It just depends on what kind of year we have. With that, we'll take questions from Facebook or in the back. Yes.
Speaking of BT, do you know the shelf life on some of this stuff? Because
Sure, good question. So for you online, so what's the shelf life of some of these things? Usually I'll tell folks about 2 years. After that, these chemicals tend to solidify, they settle, and you just can't mix them up again. So you really do want to use them within the season, and you really don't want them to go through a lot of freeze thaw. Don't store them outside. I wouldn't store them in an outside shed or something. I'd store them in the garage. Most of our garages here are insulated, including the doors, so it tempers, doesn't truly get those extremes. So I would say 2 years at most. Other than that, if it's goopy or chunky at all, just don't even try. It's not going to work. Just throw it away. Come in. I know where you can buy another new bottle at Waters, and so it's probably better. You don't want to waste your energy. I mean, it's not the cost of the product, it's your time and energy and loss of another week, and they took the next set of flowers. It's that is what you're trying to prevent. Good question. What else? Yep.
New plants, you use the root and grow. Can you also use the flower power at the same time if you're expecting flowers?
Sure, great question. So her question was, when you're doing new plants, root and grow, can you use root and grow and flower power at the same time, or what's the real difference? This one is made for transplant shock. It can be a great houseplant food, does really, really well. Cactus food, it's got a mild 2,2,1 fertilizer in it. You don't really need to use both at the same time. I would rather not force new flowers because that can stress plants out. I just want the roots. So I'd use this for at least the first 2 weeks. Then after I see it stabilize, it's growing. Oh, that's exciting. Oh boy, I was successful. Then I would cut this off and not use it again. I would use the flower power mainly to bring out more buds, more flowers. You get better color. I also don't really use this on big chunky things. Like roses, I will a little bit if they're in a container. But if they're in the ground, I'd rather use something more longevity. The 744 all-purpose is kind of a longer, better, stronger, in the yard kind of food. This is more raised bed, containers kind of stuff. Clarify that. It wouldn't hurt to use it, just harder to use a whole landscape worth of this. If you got 10 pots, it's easier to use this.
And then you put in a hose end sprayer
You
to
could-
a ratio.
Yeah, easily. You could easily put it in a hose end sprayer to go right through it. A Miracle Grow kind of sprayer
Yeah.
for that. I would suggest don't use Miracle Grow. It's garbage in a box. It's just salt based. It's going to clog up your pores. All that alkalinity, that white stuff that builds up in your sink and your bathtub and stuff, and the toilet, that also builds up in the soil, which causes you to not bloom, causes yellowing, causes issues. And so if you use Miracle Grow, it just compounds that. It's more minerals showing up in your soil. It's because of our water is so alkaline. It doesn't work like it does in the Midwest. And quite honestly, it doesn't grow a tomato the size of your head. That is just mythical marketing. That is not reality. So especially in the mountains of Arizona. Okay, with that, I'll keep the flowers up. You can kind of take a look, read tags, because I don't know how you spell fuchsia, blue pillar, porcelain. I'll let you kind of read them, but I think you could plant any of these right now and be perfectly fine. Thanks for coming, you all, and thanks for tuning in online.